Like, I could sit in Kirtan for 24 hours, and of course it was exhausting, but the fact is that sound vibration can capture you.
Brace yourselves, listeners. Spirituality can meet science. A 2017 paper published in the Journal of Neurophysiology highlighted how humming and chanting can stimulate the vagus nerve, leading to reduced heart rate and lower blood pressure.
Radhika Das is a Bhakti yoga practitioner and Kirtan artist with 15 years of experience helping people find happiness and spiritual fulfillment.
Cymatics is a study wherein this doctor put grains of sand or salt on a speaker and pumped various frequencies. Those grains started to make geometric symbols. The same effect happens on water, and so now they're testing the same theory on blood. And so the physiological effects of chanting and mantra and those frequencies is starting to be proven as being useful.
We know the power of community from Dan Buettner and the Blue Zones and all of the science that comes out there of human connection and the importance of that.
I think that there's so much to be said about being able to see people being happy without the traditional means. For most people, they just want to just relax. There's people that come in with leather jackets. There's people like have just come straight in from the office. They've had things happen in their life that's not been very pleasant, and they just want to find some peace. And the irony is,
we want to make sure these conversations get to as many people as possible. By following this show and leaving a review, you can help these conversations reach the people they need to. If you send a screenshot of your follow and review to @SarahAnnMacklin, I'll pick 3 of you to come down to the studio to meet me and the guest I'm interviewing and watch the recording live. In your email and message to me, don't forget to also let me know who you'd like to see on the show. Radhika, welcome to Live Well, Be Well.
great honor to be here, great privilege, thank you.
I am very excited today because I think people might be interested on this conversation. And I think it's very important on what we're going to discover today, because I'm going to sit here and say, this is where, shock horror, brace yourselves, listeners, spirituality can meet science. And I am a real believer that people can look through meditation, chanting, affirmations through a very woo-woo Eastern medicine lens, which, yes, that's a beautiful way of looking at it. But I also am very much a believer that the mind and the body and the soul is connected as one. And there is such a plethora of research here. So this is going to be, I think, quite a different conversation for you than most shows that you've been on.
Yeah, I'm not a self-professed scientist, but I'll give it my best shot.
No, this is where I'm going to bring in some research. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to sit here and relay it. But I wanted to start it there because I don't want people to switch off instantly by thinking that we're going to go down something that's got no scientific rigor behind it. So that's a little disclaimer. Now, we're going to start somewhere in a bit of a reflection question, first of all, before going into the science, which I spoke about. Now, I know that from listening and researching about you, that you changed your life from a very kind of partying student person to wanting to go more into helping people and humanity through spirituality. And that can be in many different kind of modalities. You did something quite profound, which I'm now going to switch around to you. You went out to people and you asked them one question, that if they had 24 hours left to live, what would they do? Now, after your however many years, maybe 10 plus years of doing that first leaflet, what would you now say that if you had 24 hours left to live, what would you do?
I'd love to be able to say that I wouldn't do anything differently, because the bucket lists have been ticked off and my practice is in a healthy place. But the truth is I'm pretty far off the mark, and I'm okay to say that. But I would have a pretty strong idea of what that day would look like. And of course, there'd be some chanting and mantra music involved. There'd probably be a conversation with my spiritual leadership, my elders. There'd probably be time for my family. And I think the last part of that day, I'd like to still do what I love to do, which is to share with others. I think that we all have to come to a point, and, you know, you can tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think we have to come to a point in our lives where nothing would change if we were to live our last 24 hours. And that's what I guess one would call a definition of contentment, that everything you have in your life and everything you're doing in your life is exactly how you want to be remembered. Because the truth is that people will never remember what you said and what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And if we're living each day like that we're, I don't know how to say it best, but we're influencing people to think and feel a particular way, they'll never forget that.
I think that's lovely. It's one of those moments where I've asked some people on the show before, especially Shane Parrish, which he asks a lot of his guests, but if he was 90 years of age and someone was at his funeral, what would they say about him and how would he want to be remembered?
Yeah.
And you've answered, rather than your last 24 hours of kind of the schedule of your day, you've kind of answered it in how you'd want to be remembered.
Yeah.
So it's a much more philosophical lens.
I'm a deep guy. What can I say?
I love that. Well, this is where we're going to go today. So I want to kind of come on to all the work that you do, because we only met recently, and then I was, overwhelmed by the sea of people that come and sit and chant and be, basically, and are present and have quite kind of profound experiences as you have yourself. And I do want to kind of start this by saying, I want to clarify a misconception that this is anything that's just religious. This is a concept that can be had by anyone. It doesn't have to be religious to appreciate the benefits that this can bring. But it's a word that I'd never heard of, so you're going to have to kind of, take a bit of moment of my vulnerability. Kirtan?
There we go. Okay, so
did I say it right?
You can say it in so many different ways. Kirtan.
Oh, that was a real dyslexic fair moment happening then.
No.
You were watching that on YouTube, I'm like bracing my heart and shrouding my shoulders. So people who are unfamiliar with me, like me, with that word, can you first of all explain what it is and the terms, the power behind it?
Sure. So kirtan comes from the root word kirt, which means to praise or to glorify.
Okay.
Now, praising and glorifying already sounds like it's coming from a religious background, because nowadays, what are we praising and glorifying? Even subconsciously, we're praising, I was going to say Man United, but we're not doing so well right now. Football teams, we're praising and glorifying those who've done well on Instagram. We're praising and glorifying those who have big houses and cars by the sea and flat screen TVs and all sorts. We're praising and glorifying material success. Now, what Kirtan aims to do is to glorify and praise the spiritual. Who am I when everything that is not me is peeled away? Who am I when everything that is not me is peeled away? When your job's peeled away, your relationship status is peeled away, your beauty is peeled away, your validation from society is peeled away. Who is that I, the essential I? And it's something that I've done with kids, with adults, with people from all sorts of walks of life, is I ask them, take a finger and point to their nose, point to their eye, point to their head, point to their hair, point to their shoulder, point to their stomach, point to their knees, point to their toes, and then point to themselves and tell them to freeze. And 9 out of 10 times they'll either go here or here.
Heart and head.
Right. And then there was one smart Alec that went...
He went all the way around his body.
So it's either here or here. And if I was to take this part of you...
Head and heart.
And put it on a plate, is that you? No, there's something beyond. So there is this understanding of the spiritual, the not material, that eludes that there's something beyond. And Kirtan is an opportunity for us to praise, to glorify, to connect with that essence of who am I, but also the possibility that there's a relationship with the divine. Now, it's so simple you might miss it, because you come and, like you said, people who watch my videos, they either get bewildered and scared and go, no, this is just like some Hindu karaoke thing. It's true, I've heard it. They either think this is incredibly deep, but the language is too different to what I'm used to, and so I don't feel quite comfortable yet. Or there's those that are willing to dip a toe. And I'm trying to make, my mission statement, if you will, is to make relevant and accessible experiences of Kirtan. And so it's giving people an opportunity to immerse themselves in that practice. And 9 out of 10 times, you're either going to go out skipping and hopping and jumping and dancing and levitating off the floor, or you're going to have some inner work to have to think about because stuff starts bubbling up. And both experiences are welcome.
One thing that really captivated me, and I have to say, writing this podcast, I listened to everything.
Really?
On your Spotify channel.
Oh, wow.
And I found it so soothing.
Oh, wow.
And I really, and this is also probably not what you've done, but it really held my attention.
Wow.
I found...
That's what it's meant to do.
Okay, so it is meant to do. So I found myself very calm. So I really wanted to kind of familiarize myself with everything that you're doing before you came on. And I kind of, in myself, not trying to search for an answer, but trying to search for the podcast of this, the topics of the podcast, it really resonated with me. I was like, I feel very, very calm. So it kind of, I wanted to look at the science of it because last year when we had Stephen Schlemek, can't say his name properly, we came on and did an episode around the vagus nerve. And he talks a lot about the omming that people do in yoga. So if anyone now is finding, okay, how can I connect to, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
Which is what we do in yoga. That's what we do. I'm not a yoga teacher.
Yeah.
Can already connect to it. This is like the base level where people might start resonating.
For sure. You've seen it in the movies.
That is what connects the vagus nerve. And that has been shown to really help with the parasympathetic rest and digest state. So for me, I was like, well, there's so much literature around this. And I wanted to just bring one up, if that's okay.
Let's do it.
So a 2017 paper published in the Journal of Neurophysiology, long word, highlighted how humming and chanting can stimulate the vagus nerve, leading to reduced heart rate and lower blood pressure. Already starting. Then if we're thinking about where the vagus nerve starts, it's in near the gut microbiome, and that's what connects us to the hypothalamus, which is our brain. So we think about the brain connection. So it's an amazing tool. Just first off, that I believe stress is the number one killer. So can you talk to me about the physical sensations and changes that you notice within yourself and within people that have come to you kind of during this chanting process that you do?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because for most people, the need, interest, and concern, I call them the NICs, the needs, the interests, and the concerns of a person that comes to a kirtan, that comes to a mantra chanting session, is because they just want to just relax. They've had a stressful week. They've had things happen in their life that's not been very pleasant, and they just want to find some peace. Just a moment where your mind isn't humming. And the irony is, you'd think that you'd find peace and quiet, because everyone says peace and quiet. But actually, like you said, the science alludes, and even the study by Dr. I've forgotten his name. It'll be in the comment section. It'll be in the bottom. The study on cymatics. Cymatics is a study wherein this doctor put grains of sand or salt on a speaker with a plate on top and pumped various frequencies. Those grains started to make geometric symbols. It started to make wave formations look very beautiful. In the body, we are made of how many percent of water? 70%, 80% water?
Just there, yeah.
The same effect happens on water. And so now they're testing the same theory on blood. And so the physiological effects of chanting and mantra and those frequencies is starting to be proven as being useful, not just from a spiritual perspective, but from that very base level, which is on the bodily mental function as well. Now, the effects that I've seen, especially because when I'm pitching mantra, I'm not giving them everything in one go because it's like you start giving the deep philosophy immediately and you're going to lose them. You need to give them a pinch of something and then allow them to experience. And many, many, many times I've seen people crying. I've seen people who have had stressful psychological backgrounds chill out. I've seen people come to terms with death, with life, with mortality, with all sorts of things, family situations. People have come to me and said, I can't believe that 2 hours of chanting has made it so clear for me that all I need to do is accept them for who they are and not what I want them to be.
Wow.
And so there are so many benefits. I could probably list them as unlimited benefits, but from a physiological point of view, from a physical and mental point of view, mantra helps to transcend the mind. And in fact, mantra, which is the sound vibrations in Kirtan.
I'm glad you said that, because
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a mantra as in something that you're just, a
Yeah.
comment that you're talking about in your
Right.
brain, but it's not as a sound.
It's okay. So manaha iti trayate is described in the scripture as manaha means the mind, trayate means to free. So mantra means to free, to liberate the mind. That's literally what a mantra is, defined. So mantras grouped together and sung in a congregational spirit, that's kirtan.
Oh, we've got a definition.
There we go.
So those two things combined, I feel like have even more powerful effects, because we know the power of community from Dan Buettner and the Blue Zones and all of the science that comes out there of, human connection and the importance of that. And I can imagine, I can't imagine it is what's happening. We're more disconnected than ever. So having the energy vibrations from others, I can imagine is having a huge physiological response.
Yeah, Jessica Alba's recently did a podcast, and I don't know the science behind this, so you're going to have to look it up and tell me if it's actually true or not. But there was a study done where music was pumped towards plants, and these plants wilted or rose according to the spirit in which the sound was being transmitted. So I think it was even her niece or something did like a children's study where they just spoke rude words to the plant, and the plant started wilting.
That's a true study. That came out, that's in somewhere, it's either in the Middle East, that when you speak poorly to a plant, it will wilt and die.
Right.
And a scientist showed that if he spoke very happy to a plant every day, and now they've basically put these plants all through shopping centres, and I can't remember where it is. I will find it and cite the study in the show notes. But this is
so there
true.
We understand that we have a playlist for everything. We've got a playlist for our romance. We've got a playlist for the gym. We've got a playlist for when you're driving a car. What about the playlist for the soul? And that's where Kirtan for me comes in. It's a playlist for that bird within the cage.
As a nutritionist, one of the most common questions that I get asked is coffee good or bad for you? Yes, coffee is good for you, but the impact of the health benefits all comes down to how the coffee is sourced and made. What's really important to consider when choosing your coffee is knowing that not all coffee is created equally. I came across Exhale Coffee by Dr. Rupi, who oversaw 9 independent lab tests to ensure the coffee is sourced to maximize the polyphenol content. This is a potent antioxidant with anti-inflammatory properties to support overall health. Switching to a high polyphenol coffee like Exhale is also fantastic for your gut health and your brain health, because research has shown that these specific components may have a real impact on our immune response. It could even help support your oral microbiome when drinking up to 2 to 3 cups a day. But over 5 a day has been shown to have detrimental effects. Personally, I love to have my coffee an hour after waking up to allow my body to use its own natural energy resources within the first hour and to align with my circadian rhythm. What I also love about Exhale Coffee is that it is also soil certification organic certified, which means that it's free from mycotoxins, pesticides, and molds. Now, if you want to give your mornings a new routine and try Exhale Coffee, then head to www.exhalecoffee.com/Sarah to get your free trial sent to you.
I think what's really beautiful about the Kirtan is not that it's just within the community aspect. It's also something that I think many people can struggle with meditation.
Me too.
Right. So I think it's such a big thing because a lot of high performers will say, I meditate every day and it's such part of my practice. And I definitely struggle with meditation. I've done transcendental meditation. I've got my mantra. Do I stick to it? Am I honest? I'm going to be really honest. No, I don't. I don't. I have lots of apps that I use. I normally try and seek meditation when I'm more stressed rather than using it as a continual practice, which is not the way to be approaching meditation. But I think allowing something, which is when I started understanding about the vagus nerve connection with the omming, really connected to me because it's also taking away just the pure quietness, which I think is what can scare people. I think it's an easier route, in my opinion, into meditation.
I remember one time I was with my parents. We were walking up this sacred mountain in India, and it was a pilgrimage site, and I'd seen, pictures, and this is another time, not the time where I was 11 or 12, but I was a little bit older by this point, and I'd seen pictures and images of people sitting in mountain caves meditating, and I had no clue what they were meditating on. I just saw pictures of them with their eyes closed, usually bare-chested, sitting in a cave. And so we were walking, and I saw a cave while we were walking through this mountain route. And I just told my parents, give me 10 minutes. So they said, what are you going to do? I said, I just want to meditate. I just want to try it. And they were like, yeah, they're not really into that, style of spirituality, but they thought, okay, let him adventure and explore. So I went up this cave, closed my eyes, and I sat there for 10 minutes. And I was like, what am I meant to be thinking about? Nothing. Okay, let me just hear the sounds. And I could just hear the squabbling of people around me, the pilgrims. Okay, no, focus. Just on your breath. Just focus. And after about less than a minute, my stomach started rumbling. And there I was like, okay, I'm done. Down I climbed, and I thought that was the end of that. And of course, I've been through many experiences, meditation since, but for me, the sound really captured me. Like I could sit in Kirtan for 12 hours. Forget that, I did a Kirtan for 24 hours once. 24 hours. And of course, it was exhausting. But the fact is that sound vibration can capture you.
Well, it gets you into your body. And we are... Maybe I was thinking of myself, but I really believe that like so many of us are disconnected. I think I say it in every show, but I really believe that it connects you to your body. And I'm going to just bring in another little fact here. That's all right. I believe it's because of the role of nitric oxide, which is really important with the vagus nerve. So that really helps stimulate the vagus nerve. And according to a 2017 study, there's lots on this, and I'm going to put them all in the show notes. But humming can boost the production of nitric oxide in the body, helping to regulate the nervous system, the immune system, and the cardiovascular system. And this in turn helps increase the blood flow and muscle relaxation.
Wow.
And
You've got to send me this stuff.
I will send it to you. I mean,
wow.
I think that the power of this is that sometimes we speak about these from a lens that doesn't show how powerful it has to the physiology of our body. And our minds change our cells, and we know that. But even thinking about omming and humming and all of these, that it is having a real reaction in our bodies.
Wow.
And so the nitric oxide, I think, is such an important indicator linked to the vagus nerve on why maybe you're able to sit there for 24 hours.
I'd love there to be a study where they hook up a bunch of equipment to me or to anyone that's chanting. It doesn't have to be me. Please don't do it to me. But anyone that's chanting, and just see what's going on. Like, I'd love there to be an in-depth study of what's going on there. If you're watching this and you're thinking, that's me and I want to do that experiment, then drop us a comment, please, because I'd love to find you.
It's one of these things, though, isn't it? Because it's obviously helping reduce cortisol, reduce the stress hormones,
yes,
and calming us and regulate us from fight or flight to rest and digest. And I think knowing that there is a tool that we can activate quite quickly within 10 minutes is really helpful for people to, if they're struggling to connect to the concept, to know that they're actually doing something very compassionate to their bodies feels like an amazing route to start capturing and accessing this tool that
100%.
is so powerful.
I mean, that was the whole, okay, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this cheeky plug, but it's the whole reason I wrote my book.
Yeah, you are allowed to.
I'm allowed to do it? Am I allowed to show him?
Show the book, yeah.
Ta-da! Mantra meditation.
If you're watching this on YouTube.
Yeah. It's the whole reason I wrote this book is because I'm of the theory, and mantra can help you to find your joy, it can help you to find your calm, and deeper so, it can help you to find your connection. It can help you to find all three. No matter what reason that you're looking for trying this practice, it's exactly made for you, because I think that sound is universal. Everyone's who is blessed with the ability to hear likes to hear sounds that are pleasing and joyful and connecting. But at the end of the day, if you're not looking for the spiritual side, that's cool too. You know, like some of the chapters are about finding your tribe. If you're feeling lonely, here's a mantra for you. If you're looking for a way in which you can serve the world, here's a mantra for you. If you're looking for a way in which you can just be a little bit less stressed, here's a mantra for you. If you're looking to get out of a bad habit, here's a mantra for you. So that's the idea behind this offering.
So something that I loved, and I really want to go into the 9 mantras that you've written and the joy, which I think is really interesting. Now we've understood what mantras are. and hoping that somebody can leave this podcast with a mantra that feels very connected to them. But something that I loved when I opened the book was that you wrote about freedom and you always wanted to be free. And I think so many people might resonate with this, that, well, what is freedom? And being free from your thoughts in your mind actually is where a lot of peace can come. But it's very hard to escape. And I think a lot of people talk about meditation as it's not, trying to clear those thoughts out of your mind. It's about coming at peace with them and sitting with them. But I really loved this part that you wrote in the book that I'm just gonna quickly read. Where you said, at first I thought it was everything outside making my life difficult. Rules, norms, expectations, disappointments. But that wasn't true. Somewhere along the way, it started to dawn on me that my most challenging opponent was inside. The mind. And I think something that for me really hit me when I read that in your book was that so much of the fight with ourselves is with ourselves, not with the external things, as Baz Luhrmann would say. Wear sunscreen, a very good line that he says in that song. And how would you now define freedom after, all of these years of practice, now writing a book on this? How would you define freedom?
Freedom means to love, and to love means to serve. So I feel most free when I can serve others. When it's not all about me sitting at the back of the bus, sitting at the front of the cinema, and sitting at the center of attention of my life. Well, to love means to serve, and freedom means to love.
I find it interesting you didn't mention anything about the mind.
Yeah, I think that we have to transcend the mind.
It's all based on love.
I think we have to transcend the mind. The mind helps us to make decisions. It helps us to discern and choose what we want to do. Do I eat pizza today? It's not good for me, so don't eat it, but I'm going to eat it anyway. That's the mind. If you can go beyond the mind, which is jumping from branch to branch, from thought to thought, changing direction like the wind. Again, it goes back to what we spoke about earlier. Who are you beyond the mind? Is there such a you behind the mind? Is this, if we talk about brain transplants, does that person get transmitted into the next body? No, it's an organ. So the mind is something of a subtle nature. It's not gross, and it can't be transmitted. So you're something beyond that. It's something to think about. It's maybe not your cup of tea. I'm sorry.
So don't apologize. I think, it's really important to maybe discuss the different mantras that are in your book. Because you have chosen 9. First of all, why did you choose 9? What was that? Was that number symbolizing anything?
Well, in total honesty, there were tons of them, and I had to whittle them down based on what I thought the needs, interests, and concerns of the people were. So I had to I had to think about each of the people that were going to potentially pick this up and try and think about what do people struggle with the most. And the way I did that was I did a little survey, and I asked people what you're most worried about, what's your needs in your life right now, what are your interests. And then I just scrolled through BBC News and Bloomberg and tried to find out where the world's at. And these are the 9 themes.
That was a depressing sight, I imagine.
Yeah, it wasn't fun, but it helped me to whittle down into 9 key themes and try and associate particular mantras with those.
Okay, so I'm going to go for the chapter 1, which is the entry.
Yep.
And I think this is a really good title. Give me another chance. Tell me the mantra behind that.
The mantra that I've chosen is one which is pronounced Narayan, Narayan. And the story behind it is of a fella who lived in ancient India, medieval India, and had an ideal life, wife, kids, etc., but fell in love with a woman of ill repute, a prostitute. And what preceded was a lifetime of drunken, animalistic living in which that person was very narcissistic, very keen on material, satisfaction, and comes to the end of his life very, very old, and decided to name his last child Narayan because, some holy people came to his house and he was in a drunken state, and he just agreed with them. Okay, fine. You think it's a good name? Yeah, okay, just give him that name. Whatever it is, just give it to him. And at the end of his life, he goes through this out-of-body experience where he's being pulled in different directions. And he calls out the name of his youngest son. And in that moment, everything becomes clear. And he gets another chance. So he gets another chance at living out the rest of his days. And that's all about getting a second chance. And I think that the relevance is, okay, that's the ancient story. But the truth of the matter is, I think each of us can think of something in our lives that we wish we had another chance at. And I think that we have a choice in that. I was once very close to crashing into some cows in America once. I was driving through a farm and really briskly driving, and I wasn't watching where I was going, and I almost crashed into this herd of cows. And my spiritual teacher was sitting next to me. I rolled down the window and did the very British thing. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And then I looked at him, he looked at me, he said, well, if you're really sorry, it means that you mean you're never going to do it again. And that's your second chance. And it's not always about self-deprecating, but it's about giving yourself the healthy opportunity to have another chance at life. And so this mantra is a sound vibration that encourages you to look at life with a fresh perspective.
With a different lens.
With a different lens.
I'm so excited to share something that has been a game changer for my business. As a nutritionist and a health professional, having an online presence that truly represents my brand is crucial. I built my website on Squarespace nearly 10 years ago now, and I'm so excited to partner with Squarespace and share with you the all-in-one platform that helps entrepreneurs and health professionals like us thrive online. Now, when I started to think about building my website, I was a bit overwhelmed. Now, you don't need to worry, because the Squarespace Blueprint AI makes it easy. It feels like having a personal design assistant guiding me through creating a site that looks professional and uniquely tailored to my brand. It's been amazing for showcasing my services and connecting to you, my audience. One feature I love is the members sites. I've set up exclusive sections for my inner circle members to access premium content like courses, recipes, books, and expert blogs. It's a fantastic way to offer extra value, build a stronger community, and generate steady income. And let's talk SEO. Squarespace has built-in SEO features to help make sure my website is optimized for search engines, making it easier for people to find my site and join my community. If you're a health professional or brand looking to elevate your online presence, I highly recommend Squarespace. It's been vital for growing my brand and making real impact. Check out squarespace.com/livewell for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code LIVEWELL for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
I think, again, so much of this goes around hope, but also compassion. I know that the beginning of your book as well, I mean, obviously a lot of my work is based in self-compassion, is think of mantra as a compassionate cosmic friend. And I think that is a very powerful way to look at all of this. Is something else that I'm thinking about, that when you're reciting these words, it's very similar to, I guess, another mantra, which is an affirmation, if that's probably, as I've now understood how you're describing mantras, is giving yourself some type of conversation that you would a friend, a line that you would a friend, actually allows us to feel more at peace and comfortable rather than the self-critical lens that so many of us can have. And thinking about it from a physiological perspective, self-criticism does change our cells. It does lower our immune system. It does have a very bad impact on our health. It does heighten our stress hormones. So having these mantras that feel like I am accepted, I have another chance, I have forgiveness for myself, I imagine something, allows us to feel more calm.
Spot on. And like I said before, we've got playlists for that as well. We've got songs that we turn to when we need to feel like we need to have another, you might be listening to this as someone that's aiming to be a high achiever in life. Now, you can't have done that, or you can't have even aimed for that, or you can't be executing that without having made mistakes. So this meditation is an opportunity for you to hear a sound vibration, a frequency of sound, even like the composition of each of these letters in the mantra is understood from the Vedic science as being able to help you overcome just that. So these sound vibrations, they're not just the melody that you attach to it, but it's the composition of the letters as well. Is formed in such a way that it unlocks certain parts of our psyche, certain parts of our heart.
I think it's really resonated with a quote from Ram Dass, obviously, who is
Very well known.
Very well known man. And it really resonated with me in everything that you're talking about, which is the quieter you become, the more you can hear. And I think many times in meditation, like we know that from all the studies that are done, that actually when we can start quieting the mind, we can become much more profound and present, and creativity and so many different neural networks actually do start stimulating. But what I found interesting is a conversation was one of the questions that I asked you from the mind, body and the soul, which is for our email subscribers, when you mentioned about the ego. So the quieter you become, the more you can hear. That really resonated with kind of our egos and the moments that we start getting very frightened of ourselves.
Yeah.
And actually the things that we do to distract and procrastinate, and the reasons why we are addicted to our phones, is so that we don't have to listen to that noise. We can shut it out quite quickly.
Yeah.
So I'd love you to talk me through like how that's maybe come up for you, or how this is an amazing tool to, I don't know if I want to say confront your ego, but to kind of befriend your ego.
Wow, I couldn't have said it better. I think you took the words out of my mouth. Befriending the ego. It's not a case of trying to cover it up with tons of other impressions. They're called samskaras, putting loads of different impressions on top of the mind, like putting some pornography on top of it, putting some substances on top of it, trying to cloud the mind by putting entertainment in front of it. I think that what we have to do is transform each of those things. So it's befriending each of those things. And I don't mean like be the best friend of your wine glass, but it's like, okay, you have, when you get stressed out, what are your go-to things? And how can you spiritualize them in some way, shape or form? And it's about trying to find, for me anyway, mantra was exactly that. I like music. I like sound vibration. I can tell it's doing something good. Even though the studies aren't there, I just feel more peaceful. How do I step into that in a way where it's accessible for me, and how do I bring others along for the ride? And I think that's a big part of this, which is that it's not just that you find your peace and calm, but the momentum stays when you go with many. Because you can get to the answers of how to live a peaceful life very quickly on your own. On your own strength, you can figure it out. But what will make it last is when you go with many. And so that's part of why a lot of what I do is congregational. It's done with many. It's done with hundreds, thousands, I hope one day millions. Because that congregational energy, or that what we call a sangha, that association, is what carries you. So, I mean, the initial point of this where you said like how a moment of peace, I think it's a quote from the Buddha actually, a moment of peace and a moment of anger can save you 1,000 moments of regret. And so first and foremost, if you're going through something that is not ideal to your high performance lifestyle, take a step back, sit with it, be honest about it, try and find answers and tips and tricks and tools and skills, and then try and do it with many. So even if mantra is not your bag, try and do whatever you're doing right, try and do it with a few more.
So two things. You said that there's not research to back it up, I think, with music, but there is. Because research into music therapy shows that rhythm and melody can activate brain regions tied to reward and emotional balance.
Wow.
So there is. It does. There is research in this area. I mean, I will put these studies in the show notes so people can find them. But I also think the other kind of second piece of research around doing it with others, which I think is a really beautiful message that you are doing and that you are highlighting, is that obviously I've mentioned Dan Buettner, who's come on the show, and we were speaking about the centenarians, and one of them is being in a community. But the longest longitudinal study that's come out of Harvard, which looked at longevity, which is a buzzword, they found, and again, I guess this is more of an epidemiological study, which can't have cause and effect, but we can kind of see patterns, that those who were living the longest were in meaningful relationships.
Wow.
And I think what's really important about that, before anyone like worries and says, oh, I'm not in a partnership, it's not just with an emotional partner, a marriage, or, into a romantic love. It was with really supportive relationships. Mm-hmm. And so kind of combining these two things is really powerful, is amazing for your health and is amazing for your mind at the same time.
Yeah, what you're doing for me is a great favor, because it's finally bringing research to the forefront of what I'm trying to do. And I've very much based my, raison d'etre, the reason why I'm doing it, behind how I feel and how it's making other people feel. But to know that you've done this much research and really looked behind the subject, it makes me feel very excited about it, because it means that there is legs on what I'm feeling. Thank you.
I think you're so well. I think it's so important, because I am within myself somebody who goes to yoga, connects with the om behind it, but didn't know that was a thing until we had this episode last year on the vagus nerve. And it was a very scientific conversation, more with a holistic lens, but still very scientific. And the kind of profound impacts of that episode really then made me want to dive a little bit deeper into this. And similar to my work with self-compassion, where for years it felt like a very woo-woo term, but actually it has such a massive impact. And I kind of think if you have, acceptance and love for yourself, you're much more likely to engage in these like health promoting behaviors, such as these things that we're talking about today. And I believe that sometimes they can be misconstrued into kind of a woo-woo concept.
I got you.
And I found it really important that in this episode that we kind of actually bring some science into it. It might not be the most rigorous meta-analysis out there. And I'm not trying to say that these are like random controlled trials. But I do know that our mind and our thoughts has a profound influence on our physiology.
For sure.
And activating these tools can be really, really helpful. And I think creating some substance to everything, if I can kind of bring the science side to it, can feel really profound for some people to maybe not feel, as you said in the beginning, people can walk in and go, whoa, this is too overwhelming, I'm going to walk out the door. Right. To maybe just feel a bit of peace and let themselves go and experience it, and then decide after the experience
100%
how do they feel and is that right for them.
I mean, it's the whole reason why I took to making this available in video format. So if you check out like my videos on YouTube and you see hundreds, if not thousands of people chanting of all walks of life. I mean, spiritualists in suit and tie. Spiritualists, yes, with, the best lycra pants you've ever seen. All walks of life from different age ranges and different cultural backgrounds. And I think that there's so much to be said about being able to see people being happy without the traditional means.
I think that's really important. I think it's similar to meditation now on apps. They'll have like walking meditation or all these different modalities of how you can meditate. Whereas I think for so many people, the block and the friction was, right, I can't have anything on my mind. I can't be stressed. I've got to sit down cross-legged and be in a moment. And actually, like, that's just not life.
No.
So it creates this friction of people to start engaging in this practice.
Yeah. And you see all sorts. Like there's people that come in with sunglasses. There's people that wear leather jackets. There's people that like have just come straight in from the office. And for us to be able to connect, whatever it is, whether it's the philosophical side, whether it's the music, whether it's that chants, where's the meaning of the chants? If you're a scientist, whether it's backed by science, is that what you're doing here?
Sorry that I'm like making this so science focused. I think I just really wanted to create a statement behind what you're.
I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that. But that's what I'm trying to do, and anyone that can help me to support that kind of mission in one sense, I think is commendable. So thank you for doing that for me.
No, I mean not at all. I think it's kind of the real rigor of this podcast is to kind of bring more of the facts as well. I'm a big supporter of mental health. So for me, anxiety and depression is rising at a phenomenal rate. And I do believe, we had Oliver Burkeman on this series recently, and he talks about the insecure overachievers. And I think now we put such a big perfectionist lens on how we're meant to live our lives. And I do think that there is a term, we had young Pablo on recently around the optimization culture of healing and all of these moments. And I kind of actually think that it's just the being which is really important. But if we can also connect that this is actually really helpful for your health at the same time, it can maybe allow people to access it a bit more.
And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to take it out of the yoga studios. Like, I started by presenting what I'm sharing here in yoga studios because that was a natural audience in one sense, people in the wellness industry, etc. Then we started trying it out with those in recovery. 12-step, same effects. Started doing this with corporates. We went into some of the big places in Canary Wharf, same effects. Started doing with children, sharing mantra with children, obviously in different contexts, a lot more fun, a lot more jolly and less, morose. Same effects. Places where they didn't even speak the same language as me. Having now traveled to, I've done the globe twice now, and seeing people who don't even have a translation of what I'm saying. They don't even have the mantras on the wall behind me. People in festivals who are off their faces, and just seeing the response being very positive has given me more enthusiasm. And so having you share, and I'm going to take all these notes from you now because I'm not going to use all this stuff. This is incredible work. It's going to help to just back what I've seen and experienced and felt and others are feeling. So here's to mantra, changing the world one mantra at a time.
Great. Well, I want you to leave our listeners with the mantra that's for them. Something that's not in the book, something that people can access maybe after they've listened to this to feel a connection to their body. So for me, something that's really important is people to, and I'm the worst at this, over-intellectualizing. So obviously this entire podcast, we've over-intellectualized why this is happening and we're not just being. But, now we've done that. Now we've done that side and the mind's now understanding. I would like you to give us a mantra that connects us more to our bodies.
You've used it so many times, and interestingly, I've not even put it in the book. It's not in the book.
The serendipity of that I didn't realize is brilliant.
Yeah, so this is a one-syllable mantra that is understood as being the first sound vibration in creation. So again, go and do your research, because those that have studied the sound vibration at the beginning of time have found that this humming Om is the sound that started creation. So it's in the scriptures of the East and the old times, etc., the ancient scriptures, but it's also being found in real research. And again, I wish I knew the studies, and I should have known the studies if I'd known that this is the kind of podcast where it would come in handy. But still, it's a mantra which brings about a lot of peace, a lot of presence. It brings about a lot of beginning energy, starting something new. I used to, for example, and I still do this, in the corner of my pages when I'm starting some work, I'll write the symbol for Om because it's a new beginning. So it's a mantra that I want to try with all of you. Is that something you want to?
Yes, let's
give
do
it a go?
I'd love to.
So if I can ask everyone to sit nice and tall, comfortably so, I'm going to bring my magic music box with me here. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths in and out. Feel the sensation as you breathe in one more time. Breathe out once again. You're hearing the drone in the background. And as your eyes are closed, even though you're not asleep, I want you to just become more and more present in this moment here and now. Hearing the sound of my voice. Everything that is to come in life will come, let it be. Everything that's happened to you today has happened, let it be. One more deep inhale. Deep exhale. I'm going to chant once alone this sound vibration Om. And then in unison with me, with Sarah, I want you all to chant with me just for 30 seconds, if that. So first hear it as I chant alone, and on the next one, please chant with me. Om. Deep breath. In unison. Om. Twice more. Deep breath. Om. Last one. And try to just hear. Om. I recommend you to try that once again in your own time. Maybe you want to rewind 30 seconds back, because the first time you may have been a little bit thinking about all other things, including I could hear Sarah's mind thinking, I wonder what my listeners are thinking of this at this moment. I wonder how they're going to perceive this. I can read her mind. So I'm thinking, if you want to give that another go, here's your permission to do so. And all I want you to do is hear the sound of all of us chanting, Sarah, I, and you and I, chanting this one sound vibration, and notice how it brings a little bit of peace to your life. Anyway.
I love that. I also want to say, I hope you weren't driving, because we didn't put a disclaimer in that if you were driving, feeding a child, I don't know, whatever you were doing, I really hope that you pause and have come back to that.
Yeah, that's why I'm telling you. I'm giving you permission. Rewind and do it when you get a moment. Maybe it's before bed, maybe first thing in the morning.
I also love that you felt that I was feeling comfortable. I felt like I was going to my yoga class and was there. And all I could think about in my brain, which I really want people to go and listen to the episode if they haven't done on the vagus nerve, probably about a year ago now, so people might need to go back. But that's got all the science in it. And so, yeah, basically he was the founder of Sensate, the device that you put on your chest.
Oh, amazing.
And it vibrates. And basically that helps stimulate the vagus nerve through very similar sensations to the omming that we were just doing. So there's a plethora of all of the research. I know we only touched on it today, but all of that is in that episode.
Incredible.
So we're kind of bringing the two together, which is very, very exciting. That was such a beautiful way. I love that is new beginnings. That is now something that I'm going to take with me when I go and do
I'm
yoga.
a tester on it the next time I see you. I'm like, have you done any omming since?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I've got a yoga class tomorrow, so I will have definitely done it by the next, unless I'm seeing you tomorrow morning, then I would definitely have done it. But it leads me to my final question, which I ask every guest.
Yep.
And it is, what does live well, be well mean to you?
Well, take care of yourself. Make an endeavor to do so. I want to give you an analogy that might help. Be like an archer. An archer, when they have a target in mind, they first start by aiming the arrow in that direction. Then they have to make an endeavor, a conscious effort to pull the string back. I don't know if that's the right terminology. You pull the bow into tension. And then be well. Let go. Let go of the result of it being exactly the way you wanted it to be. Well might not be how you thought it was going to be. So take aim, make an effort, make an endeavor, research, try, practice, and then let go of the result and thinking it's going to happen the way I wanted it to. That's a nice live well, be well.
I love that theory.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I shot from the hip there. Completely came up with that.
That is a great analogy. I love that. I was really thinking of my thoughts, putting back the bow, firing, and just see what happens and what direction it goes in.
Yeah, I'll give credit to my spiritual teacher. He told me that one.
I love that. Well, I think in over hundreds of episodes, we've never had the same answer. And that's the beauty of that question, that living well, being well is such a individual, personal thing to every individual. And that's how I believe health is in its essence. So it's a really lovely question that every time I learn what that means to someone else. And I
It's a
loved
great
yours.
question.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you so much for coming on. I would say the book, let's make sure that we talk about it. Mantra Meditation coming out
January 23rd.
January 23rd. And 9 mantras there to help you find joy and connection in your life. We will put your links to all of the amazing events that you've spoken about in the show notes. I will send you the studies. I will put them also in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on to Live Well, Be Well.
Grateful to you, grateful to your listeners. Thank you all for hearing me out, and look forward to chanting with you very soon.
One chant at a time.